The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
Hello everybody, it's Mark Ceely here. Hope you are doing really well wherever you are in the world. Part of our Alldus ServiceNow podcast series, I'm very happy to welcome Mark Ceely to the show. Mark has been on the podcast in the past and we're delighted to welcome him back again. Mark is a practice director at SecOps and IRM at InSource. Mark, thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, glad to be here.
Mark, could you give us a little bit of a reminder how you got into the world of ServiceNow and your journey to here?
So, very unique journey. Well, maybe not unique. We ask other people. Started in communications in the Army back in the 90s. Came out, did point-to-point microwave, moved into the MSOs, right, the cable plants. That was sort of my dip into the IT world, because we actually would utilize NetCool, right? So IBM Tivoli Suite, moved into that further. So I then expanded about 14 years playing in the IBM realm and then getting into HP. And then about 8 years or so ago, did a project where I was doing actually comparisons to ServiceNow, whether if it could replace NetCool for a customer. And that was my first instance of it, doing anything with ServiceNow, which was good because I had to analyze the entire platform as I went through. So it was really good awakening for me. And I just saw the benefits of how ServiceNow was helping their customers as far as, hey, we can customize more, we can do more. Where I dealt with NetCool for 15 years, that was a black box, right? You didn't touch NetCool. So it was a completely different change, but I didn't like it because you over customize, right? No, it was the extreme opposite. But then I started playing with it more, and over the time frame, over those first few years, ServiceNow tamed it back to say, hey, no, we don't want you to over customize. We want you to be happy and do more configuration. Let's scale back. So then it came into sort of the sweet spot for me. After being with the emphasis for a little while there, I actually founded BECK Strategies in 2018. We were an Elite ServiceNow Partner for 4 years, and then we merged with InSource at April of last year because we were partnering with them over those 4 years, and it just became a good marriage between the two companies.
Great story, and thank you very much. It's funny that you say that you've got a unique background, and you do have a unique background. But what I've learned from the interviews I've had within the world of ServiceNow is a lot of people have quite unique backgrounds who come into this field versus some of the more standard podcasts I've done across artificial intelligence, who maybe are VPs of AI or kind of roles like that. So ServiceNow seems to bring this different diversity of thought together particularly well. And maybe that's one of the reasons why it kind of works so well.
Well, I think one of the things that they've done is really enhance the idea of the business units, where most other platforms are, we're IT, we know best, and the IBM, the HPs of the world, their focus is from that IT perspective, and they sort of set the tone for the entire company. Where ServiceNow comes from a different perspective, and they say, well, no, it's the end users that need to set the tone for the platform, the HR department, the governance department, going across the board of the entire company. And I think when you're setting the tone there, then it gives a different perspective to the IT group. So when we come in as ServiceNow consultants, we have to have more understanding of what's outside of IT. Who are you dealing with on a day-to-day? Who is my actual customer? And that's what I need to play to. So you need all those different personalities within your organization to really make a play for it. And then the underlying part is IT. It really is, but it's the consulting of knowing business across the platform, which makes a difference. So you can come in with, we have a skill bridge program. I've had somebody that started out where they were a cook in the military or a medic, and now they're ServiceNow developers. So you can definitely come in from different backgrounds and just have an understanding.
Tell us a little bit about InSource and your role at InSource within SecOps and IRM.
So at InSource, we're an elite partner with ServiceNow. We run the gamut. We do sales, implementation. We're a tech partner. We're a training partner. We have multiple delivery streams. So ITSM, ITOM, CMDB, SPM, and then I handle the SecOps and IRM area, which was GRC. Now it's integrated risk, which is just drastically growing, especially over the past year. So I focus in that area, which in the past few years has gotten a lot more talk to it. As you see the data breaches, privacy breaches across the platform, and SolarWinds a few years ago with the big hack they had in Microsoft. So we're getting a lot more attention. The SecOps and IRM world used to be an add-on from ITSM. Everybody had ITSM. It's a basic need. ITOM is very similar. Hey, we need to discover our products out there, our servers and everything else. And it's like, we don't have money for that governance stuff until you fail an audit or until you get hacked, right? Then it's like, oh, no, throw all the money at it. But now we're seeing that level out. We're seeing that the business are saying, hey, no, this is important on a day-to-day as much as discovery. And now we're getting more into the talking grounds of, hey, we need to start doing this on a daily instead of being so reactive to it. So it's nice to see. The other thing that's pushed IRM across the platform, ServiceNow has taken it, I don't want to say take advantage, but they've been aware of how it's leveled out with that. So they're actually taking the risk across the entire platform, much like the CMDB being the backbone of ServiceNow. Risk is getting that way as well. It's tapping into all the different areas. So we're seeing a lot more flow that way. I'm really enjoying it more because now it's not just, governance used to be, hey, we're putting in policy paperwork, we're putting in controls. Well, now we're actually attacking the problems. We're actually tying into the different areas. So for me, that becomes more dynamic. And so that's been a real key play out here. So with the different regulations from the government coming through, just those hacking and all different things happening, ServiceNow has really paid attention. And like we said earlier, it's paying attention to the business and what we need to do there, not just an IT function. So, we can't play crystal ball. We got to, do what we can.
Yeah, I think they've been very, very purposeful, and consequently, there's a lot more attention played to it, and people are taking very, very seriously data. Talk us through some case studies where you've been able to help customers to succeed, and think about what was the problem, what was the challenges that those customers have, and kind of walk us through it.
So we have a couple of great case studies. Actually, I have a ton of great case studies, but just a couple off the top of my head. I have one very good customer. They've been a customer on for over 4 years, and they actually wound up getting SecOps, the vulnerability response module, as well as the GRC module, and it was because they failed an audit. Right? They were completely reactive. They were caught off guard because they had no visibility into what was happening. They were already doing discovery. They had multiple tools doing different discoveries and coming into the platform, but it wasn't clean. And the organization piece of it was to, hey, we need visibility on this. So, we put NIST controls in place with the vulnerability response. We're actually still working with them hand in hand, walking them through the process of, hey, this is the path you need to take. And they're a great customer because they respond to what we say. It's not like we need this and this is how we're going to do it. They actually listen to the advice on, hey, let's take those baby steps and walk you through it, and let's tackle what went wrong. So now they're getting a cleaner CMDB based off that vulnerability response. They're getting better patching processes in place as we're walking through it, and they actually have a true exceptions process, which they never even had before. It was, hey, this list of servers we don't touch. That's not a very good exception process. So now they're actually managing that. They run. They're actually a technology company themselves. They deal with state and local governments. They're in 3,500 different governments across the country, which is amazing when you think about government entities. There's that, and they're not in all of them, right? In this 3,500. So they're dealing with government entities across the country, and they failed an audit. right? So little mud on their face, but we're cleaning that up so they're not failing the next audit and moving forward. And then what's going to happen is, the next audit that we prepared for, as far as, hey, here's our reports, here's our structure, but what we want to get them to is when they're actually handing the report in themselves and saying, hey, we've just printed out the audit report for you because we have GRC in place, and these are all the requirements you have. So that's the next step. So then it makes those discussions a lot easier. The other thing we've come to play with them is they're finding ways to work their budget cycle with the vulnerability management, because they're finding older devices that are out there. What can't we upgrade? They're getting more visibility. So now they're saying, hey, now we need a replacement cycle. So you can see we weren't just detecting issues, we were actually building an asset inventory. We're building replacement cycles with this. We're fixing audits. So a lot of things come into play with just factor one module within ServiceNow on that one. Another good use case is a bank that we've been dealing with out of Texas. Can only give you so many specifics, right? Because NDAs. But they've been, again, vulnerability response has been a big thing for them. Visibility across the platform. They've been using Tenable for their scanning tool, and just bringing in that space, for Linux and Windows patchings has been difficult for them. And they actually have specific teams for those, right? They have a Windows team, they have a Linux team, but they realized that patching cycle wasn't enough. Because being a bank, and I don't know how much you know about banking IT, there's a lot of old systems that you can almost never get rid of, right? The old AS400s, I know people have heard of them. Nobody ever wants to touch them. There's like one person in the company that knows what it does.
Yeah.
That's it. But it's got that information out there that they need for some audit someday, right? Because in banking, you need to keep those records forever. So, you have those situations of where, here's my exceptions, and I need to have it limited to those different groups. But also, even if I'm giving exceptions through a vulnerability, because we can't upgrade that, we need to make sure we're on top of it. And there needs to be that reminder every 30 days. Hey, what's on the exception list? Oh, okay, it's just the AS400 and nothing else. Okay, now, is there any way we can do it? And you always need to keep that review, because eventually there is something out there that we can replace that old system with. We can do something with it. And what we found is a lot of customers sort of shelf an exception and forget it's out there and just don't worry about it. And that's not the best way to handle things, because that's where you're going to get that breach if you're not paying attention to it. So understand exceptions important, but if we're not tracking those exceptions, that's going to be our weakest link at the end of the day. And that's what this bank has actually handled with their exception process as, hey, we have control now. We know what's going on. That's how we can go.
Yeah, and just tracking that and making it very, very consistent, because when people want to go back in the archives and they want to check it, it just needs to be available, and people need to understand there's a certain standard that they need to walk through. And you mentioned a few different points within those case studies, but being able to respond back to those vulnerabilities that are there in real time, and being able to actually have a process that you feel really comfortable with, that you can roll out across the business, and then the business can actually feel like we've got security underpinned, we've got a process underpinned, and we can manage that effectively as well. I think customers feel a lot better knowing that everything's done in a really systematic way, but also the people that work for the company feel good about the whole process as well.
Yeah, one of the big things we find is whenever we have a customer, and vulnerability response is a good one, much like incident response, when they turn it on, they have no idea how bad it was, right? But when they, the one customer I was just speaking to, we switched it on and it came in and they had, 50,000 vulnerabilities. 50,000, that's so astronomical. And then they're like, okay, what do we do? And they were saying, Mark, what do we do? And I said, well, we bite off what we can actually chew, right? So let's bucket different areas. What are they? Windows, Linux. Let's break these things down. What's on the initial exception list you have? Let's separate those out for now. We'll tackle those in a minute. And then let's look at your patching schedule. And what we came to find out is they were doing a lot of patching. They're doing it on a monthly basis, but they had such a limited window. If a patch didn't get processed properly, then it waited for another month cycle. It's like, well, no, why are you doing that? There's no reason for that. You just need to adjust your patching cycle. So they've come down from that 50,000 to under 10,000, right, of real vulnerabilities once we started seeing this. And that's the beauty of it, is when you say, okay, now we're getting control. Now what's next? And okay, now we realize, okay, some of those machines are like 2004 Windows, right? You're not upgrading those anymore. That's a whole bunch of those. So if we segment those out, in a nice workspace and say, hey, this is that group. What are our vulnerabilities on things we can deal with today? And we come to find out that's only a few hundred. Okay, that's a manageable number. And then you need to get with finance to say, what do we do about these 2004 servers, right? Because you need to replace those. You need to upgrade. You're not patching anymore on those, but they are still a vulnerability. But now we're saying, hey, these are the things we can tackle IT wise or security wise today. We have to go through budget meetings for these other things, and these other items are exceptions we need to get with the business unit on. So now it's manageable, and that's what the important part is.
Yeah, and I think once people kind of feel like, okay, you've lifted up the rock, you're looking underneath what's going on, you think, okay, let's take a step back. And then you feel like you've got a course of action. Then everyone feels like they're rowing in towards that course of action. And then step by step, people feel like they're making meaningful progress. That's a real morale boost. And people feel like, they're going on a journey as well that they can share too. And that's a great example. And I think there's always that day you find out, and then the day you move on, and then you feel like you go on that journey. You kind of pivoting a little bit here, kind of going on to something that is I know is close to your heart, is the veterans program that you work and you share and you use. It'd be great to give a little bit of background about that. Obviously, you mentioned that you were in the Army before. Tell us a little bit about how this came about.
Yeah, so that is near and dear to me. I'm not sure how it became that way from initially, but I was in the Army, and that's always been a part of who I am. Obviously played into my career, the benefits in life that you get from being in the military. And when I founded BECK, we were small, we're competing against larger partners, so we don't really have volume of folks. And we partnered with another company, and they had all these veterans that they were training, but they could not do any hands-on. They didn't have projects. We had projects. So we actually partnered up. We were giving them the projects, the hands-on training to build them through. And initially there was 15 of them. And everybody got placed. We actually hired some in-house that are still with me today, 4 years later. And then what we said is, okay, that was a veteran program, but we need to catch the folks before they're out of the military. And the DoD has set a program for folks that are transitioning out. Within 6 months, they can internship at a company within any different field they think they're going to go into. So there's thousands of different DoD skill-rich programs out there for different industries. But we set up one. We were one of the first ones with ServiceNow. And we still actually have the highest success rate as far as passing ServiceNow certifications. And we started out with only a couple. We now average about 35 interns at any given moment within the program. But it's helped make them successful. And what we do is we don't just train them, we actually help place them. And we've had some that, hey, they left the program, they didn't want to do it. We've had some realize ServiceNow wasn't for them. That's fine. We had one person go off to NASA. He wanted to do different things. And like I mentioned earlier, we had a cook, we've had a medic, we've had someone from marketing. So all different walks of life coming into it. But we get them certified, we train them hands-on, and we also say, hey, your social media presence is important. We make sure they go with their resumes. We do practice interviews, work on their social media setup to get them placed. And we have placed most of the folks with other partners as well as in-house, because obviously we can't take everybody, because 35 at every moment is a lot. So it's been very successful, and we're actually have a higher success rate on passing certifications than ServiceNow's own skill-rich program. So we've been very pleased about that. And we actually worked with ServiceNow on the training process for the course design for their in-house program. So we've been heavily involved in that. And I think to date we have well over 300 folks that have gone through the program. I have to look at the number, but it's been a huge success we move forward. So glad to talk about that anytime.
Yeah, it's a great story, and there's fantastic transferable skills. And as we said before, the platform allows people to come in and utilize those skills, and address some of the challenges we have within the talent management piece, because we need more people within that area, because there's so much opportunities there too. Mark Ceely, Director of Practice Lead at InSource, thank you very much for your time today, and really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.